Hello, everybody joining us on YouTube. It's a real delight to have you here this evening with us for this wonderful launch for Jenny Pagdin and Khairani Barokka's recent Nine Arches poetry collections, Amok and the Snow Globe. I'm absolutely delighted to be here to launch these tonight with our very special guests joining us, Liz Berry, as well as Jenny Pagdin and Khairani Barokka. My name is Jane Kamain. I'm editor at Nine Arches Press, and I'll be your host for this evening's poetry events. Also, a very big hello to everybody who's joining us online on YouTube. It's a real delight to have you here with all of us. And I'm just keeping a little eye here on where everyone's tuning in from. So it's lovely to know that we've got people joining us from South London, the Black Isle in the Highlands, North Norfolk, Norwich, Suffolk, all over. What a delight to have you here tonight. So please do use the messaging on YouTube because it's really lovely to know that you're here with us, and we're just really delighted and very excited to be launching these wonderful books this evening. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first reader for this evening. We are really delighted to have the wonderful Liz Berry as tonight's special guest for this Nine Arches launch. Liz won the Writer's Prize just over a week ago for her brilliant book, The Home Child, and we're absolutely delighted that she's our special guest this evening. It's such a beautiful book, so I do urge everyone to go and get themselves a copy. And congratulations, Liz. It's such a wonderful piece of news for such a very special book. To tell you all a little bit about Liz Berry. Liz Berry is an award-winning poet and author of the critically acclaimed collections Black Country from Chatto in 2014, The Republic of Motherhood, also from Chatto in 2018, The Dereliction from the Hercules Editions in 2021, which was a collaboration with the artist Tom Hicks, and most recently, The Home Child, a novel in verse. Liz's work is described as a sooty, soaring hymn to her native West Midlands and celebrates the landscape, history, and dialect of the region. Liz has received the Somerset Maugham Award, the Geoffrey Faber Memorial Prize, and the Ford Prizes. Her poem Homing was a love poem for the language of the Black Country and is now part of the GCSE English syllabus. Please will you give a warm welcome to Liz Berry.
Oh, thanks, Jane. Oh, good evening, everybody. What an absolute joy to be here tonight to celebrate these two new wonderful books by Jenny and Alka. I had the privilege of working with Jenny while she was writing The Snow Globe. So this is such a special moment for me. And when she reads later, I feel like my heart will just burst with pride. So yeah, what a beautiful thing to be asked to support these two wonderful poets tonight. So I'm just going to read a mix of poems this evening. I tried to pick some poems which might tune into the frequency of Jenny's book and what she might read. So there'll be one or two new poems and one or two old poems, but all in this sort of world of motherhood and its wild regions. So I'll screen share, and as I'm reading, I'll try and move through the poems in a way that doesn't distract you as I'm scrolling down. Okay, let's see if I can make all the tech work. Here we go. So hopefully you should be able to see the poem now. But if at any point it disappears, then just shout me. So this is a brand new poem, like a few weeks ago, new poem. It was that first poem that I'd written for a long time. After a book, there's always kind of a long and really terrifying gap in which you think you'll probably never write another poem ever again. And certainly that it won't be anything worth reading. So here it's just a really sweet little poem, and it's about the time at night when I kiss my youngest son on his eyelids. Peach. When I kiss my son upon the eyelids, he radiates peach. So strange, this feeling, so strange. To grow a boy and love him. To press my lips, where his skin is so delicate that light casts through, revealing all the tiny veins. Sunrise, as the inside of the body's fold, clingstone and fuzz, radiant juice, little Pete, who took all the blossom of my life into his cells. Oh, to kiss you now, in the dark orchards of sleep, when outside the world is already singing, let go, and the tree loosens her boughs to the wind. This next poem is one of those long, rambly poems that I love that tell a story. And this is a story about a mother, does what most mothers do when the children have gone to bed. She sweeps around the house, tidying up tiny things. Only one night she looks out into the garden and sees what seems to be a woman on fire in the trees in the back garden. The burning. It was the hard winter she came. Frozen larks plummeting through the gloam like falling stars, each pale in the yard a slatten's looking glass. Each dusk, the house cobwebbed by creeping frost, my husband slipped like a knife from an oyster, my sons nestled like dormice in their cots. I stood at my black window, and oh, the cold it pressed upon me like a lover, held its hands to my throat, my knees. She came first through the trees, a small glint amongst the poplars, hoarfrost dripping from the velvet nubs of their antlers, leaping fast to a shuddering pillar of flame, a pelvis, a cradle of jewelled tinder, her ribs white kindling, a holy thing, such furious unblossoming, and something profane. I pressed my eye to the glass, the crackling dark, saw a heart catch light, blackbirds flap frantic from the forks of the trees. Woke shivering, sweat between my breasts, my tongue in my teeth. Every night then she came. In the stolen hours between caring and dream, the children vanished, the drudging chaos of day put to sleep. With no words to tell of the shape she scorched, the frozen lock, the copper key. But that heat licked me raw as a wild love, cracked the ice on my ribs and tossed in a flare. All my life I've been a good woman, compliant, neat. My children's snow boots polished, each snowflake of ash swept clean from my step. I've worn obedience like a uniform, the hoof of the iron cooling in my grate. Yet I riled in the witching hour, tongue glittering. My darling, I whispered to my own dried bones. For what do you burn? 3 moons she's been absent. Though I wait at my window, the chill persisting, presaging snow, and my longing rises hopeless as the carp in the pool. Don't know where she's living, or if she lives at all, with women nursing in fevered sheets, or scrubbing floors until their knuckles ignite. But by dark, when my sons sail the black cut of sleep, and frost lays its terrible lace upon the grass, when I'm alone with my fretting, with my dreams, like black pearls in the clam of my mouth, I press my fists to that tenderest wound, my soul, and Christ, how I burn. This poem's called Highbury Park, and it's about beautiful and a slightly wild overgrown park near where I live in Birmingham. And I walked there all the time when my son was a little baby. And I was the day shift. There's also a night shift. And here the two worlds sort of come together in a dreamy way. Highbury Park. In the woods at night, men are fucking amongst the gorgeous pinatas of the rhododendrons, the avenue of cool limes. By day, I walk my son down the secret pathways, smell the salt rime of sex on the wind, the condom, glowing with blossomy cum, knotted and flung. I bury it gently under the moss with my boot. I envy them, these lovers. Dark pines beneath their knees, the tarry earth alpaline with the desire paths of snails, fallen feathers in the dirt like warnings. I know those days, of aching to be touched by no one who knows you. After he was born, I wanted nothing but the wind to hold me, the soft mouth breeze, coaxing my skin like the grass from a trampled field. How heavenly it seemed then. Light shafting emerald through wounded leaves, the woods a church, and we its worshippers. And all that sex, freed from love and duty, like being taken by the wind, swept from the cloistered rooms of your life, stripped and blowed, and jilted, dazzling in the arms of the trees. And I think I'll just read one more poem, and then I'll let you get on to Jenny's beautiful work. So I'll end with this poem, Godspeed. I have another poem from Motherhood. So interested, and we hear this in Jenny's work too, in what happens to the longings of mothers, the desires of mothers as they cross that border. This is a poem about that. Godspeed. When we fork in sweet darkness, I leave my body behind, rising from her as smoke rises from the forging fire. Godspeed, I tell her, as we part like lovers on the threshold. I want to begin again, move as the creatures of the air do, birds, moths, ghosts shimmering in the empty streets, the theremin song of the trees as they shed their inhibitions against the gold light, the blood and dueling of the body, its grief and burden, abandoned like an unreadable book. I wish I could take you with me, but one of us must stay behind, keep watch upon the darkness, our son's warm limbs reaching like tendrils from their cots. Thank you, everyone. And I know you're in for such delights now, listening to Jenny and Olka. So thank you. Thanks, Jane. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you so much, Liz, for that beautiful, beautiful reading. It was just so enchanting. And I'm still thinking about that line, the frost as terrible lace, which I think is a beautiful link, as well as all the themes of motherhood, which were so intricately woven through those beautiful poems, to bring us to Jenny Pagdin and Jenny's debut collection, The Snow Globe. I'm really delighted to be here tonight launching this. This is Jenny's debut collection, and one of the real pleasures of being an editor is when you have submissions and you're reading through the work that's come to you through the sort of through the ether, it feels like sometimes, and you have this sometimes quite big pile of manuscripts that you're working your way through. And every now and again there'll be something that you just cannot stop thinking about. And this was one of those collections where there was just poems here that I couldn't stop thinking about that drew me in. It's a very delicate, intense, astonishing set of poems. And I'm really so proud to be the publisher for this collection and so proud to be congratulating Jenny this evening on publishing it with Nine Arches. To tell you a little bit more about Jenny and about this book, now let me just give you a little bit more background. The Snow Globe is a powerful, sensitive, stark debut collection, written from first-hand experience under the glass dome of postpartum psychosis. Jenny's poetry depicts a fearsome, glittering inner storm of severe mental illness during new motherhood, moving through illness, through those snow flurries and sunshine, to a place of recovery and love. Rebecca Goss says of this collection, offering an unflinching account of postpartum psychosis, the Snow Globe is raw, painful yet light-filled as the poet steers us towards clarity and healing. These poems have risen from a dark place, and with the tender force of Pagdin's pen, they make a crucial book. To tell you a little bit about Jenny Pagdin, her pamphlet Coldbeck was published by Eyewear in 2017 and shortlisted to the Dyslexia Pamphlet Competition and listed by the Poetry Book Society. Jenny lives in Norwich with her family, where she works in the voluntary sector. She has an MA in Creative Writing from the University of East Anglia and a BA English from Oxford University. Her work has been featured in New Welsh Review, Smoke, Magma, Ambit, Wild Court, The Stand, Finnish Creatures, Interpreter's House, Ink, Sweat and Tears, and in an Emma Press anthology. Well, I'm absolutely delighted to be welcoming Jenny now to read for you from the Snow Globe. And I have my own little snow globe here just to shake and settle as we welcome Jenny to read her beautiful poems for us.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Jane. And hello, everybody. This is a delight. It's just really wonderful to be here with you and to hear Liz's beautiful poetry, spellbinding poetry. So as Jane said, the collection is fully about postpartum psychosis, which is serious but a recoverable mental illness. And I just want to say a couple of words of thanks to Liz for the wonderful mentoring, to Jane and Angela for being such a fantastic team at Nine Arches Press, and to everyone who's here today, and also my family who gave me the time to write. So I'll start with the first poem. We had our son in 2013. This poem is called Newborn. A paper jewellery box lined with kapok, bolstering a seed and a light blue eggshell. Then your name, that birthright that flew to my chest like hail, bringing the male beauty of winter. We used to whisper it through the walls. You rooted around for my third gift before it was offered. The rich hind milk let down. We nestled in. My body was yours. We brought you lamb's wool with a memory of snow, the softest corduroy, felt, muslin, papooses and clockwork. Our flat filled up with a flock of cards. The trees touched foreheads where they met above the houses. So yeah, this next book is the title poem of the collection. And when my son was 6 weeks, we were hospitalised for me having postpartum psychosis. It was a really hot summer, and I was in and out of the hospital garden and in and out of bed as well at all sorts of funny times. So this is Snow Globe. Those weeks, the summer waited for me like a snow globe, around the time I thought I could fly. One of those weeks when I felt elated by the glitter in the floor tiles, and my heart and mouth were full of song. Feet starry from the seeds and grains, the dust of noon. I was making and remaking the bed twice a day, half lifted on dry flaring storms. But he came only once, upturned my cloistered world. The nurse said it wasn't my fault. Evening dust played in the window, while I handed round parsley like Ophelia, thinking she meant the sheets. A selkie, or seal folk, is a creature of the sea who has the power to transform into human and live on land. And they can marry human, maybe have children, but they're always able to put their seal skin back on. Sometimes a man will hide his wife's skin. I don't know whether it works the other way around as well. But this is a poem called Selkie Mother, and it's a prose poem in 3 parts. Selkie Mother, Heart. Winter is the time her heart seeks to wander, wrung out and leaden, drawn with cramps, though she does everything she can to stop it. She tries to tether it with deliveries and concert dates, but still, it wants to stray. Every morning she beaches at 5:15, unprepared and empty-handed, nothing sifted, nothing darned. Winter is the time it would sever itself, float off. She pads about the house in the matted dark. Her heart still longs to snip its ties to her. Womb. Her son had slipped out with a membrane over his scalp. Her womb had stayed behind, an old church, and a church ought not have weather, but this one held ice between its panes, drips in its rafters, buckets at the end of each pew. She watched his small lungs inhale the amnion, eyes brimming over with salt. At least he would never drown. Skin. It nestles at the back of the airing cupboard, pressed between tissue like a christening gown. Why would her husband not expect her to find it there? It still fits fine, even after pregnancy. The short fur has turned a little clumpy, yellow, tin, and grey. All she needs to do is roll it into her bag, run down the damp brown sand, pull the hood over like the baby's call, the waves rising over and beneath her. Becoming a parent for the first time is transformative for anyone. And in my case, I was also suddenly and severely mentally ill. So in this next poem, I'm exploring those 2 transformations. Say that my illness were a fairy child, and that for years I carried her unwittingly, but when the pangs came for him, she slipped out too, like a seal pup. Say, I blew raspberries into her belly button, applying balms with cotton wool, cradled her in lullabies and crochet, lip traced her non-existent eyebrows, and held out my pinkies to both small fists. Well, what else could I have done? Let's say it was love, that I didn't care that my hair was dishevelled, and I wasn't prepared to be ashamed of this colicky, fey little changeling. My daughter's my daughter for all of her life. What was there to do but embrace her? Friendship and the feeling of being heard about my experiences were hugely important for me during recovery. The friendship prescription. After wandering around A&E, before falling into a grand mal seizure, I prescribed myself somebody to listen. In the absence of campfire and blankets, someone would huddle inside the tent of curtains, perch on my rickety metal bed. And though this wasn't part of the hospital offering, since then I have been listened to, held, till there's no more them, but all us. A crochet blanket around taut shoulders, lips to the baby's warm fontanelles, the white moon shifting on its anchor. I went on to have another psychotic episode while my son was still small. This poem is called James and the Catkins. I was sickening for psychosis. more than sickening. And you were less than 2, just starting to talk, and I made a game for you as we walked the woodland path, putting all the catkins into houses under leaves. You tottered about, repeating, pillar, home. Sometimes that is all any of us need, a place to be our home. You took all of your babies and laid them to sleep. I used to invent innocent games for you, and when I was ill and I knew I wasn't thinking straight, I begged my mother to hold you, to keep you safe, like her arms were my arms, loving you. I knew I shouldn't hold you. I knew. I wrote this next one in a workshop, but in another sense, I don't really know where it comes from. It's called landscape, which means the weaving together of horizon lines. Okay. The hut tilted, and in came the tide, gathering jars and books from my shelves. But it was their time. Through the bobbing window, there was still that one dark stain between sea and sky, the inky line spreading into the water and into the wind. And I was no longer distinct, but everything, water and sky and hut, and poised to carry myself on the currents over the threshold and onto the beach. Carry myself I did, tenderly as a coffin, over pebbles and sea-worn debris, and then I turned onto my back and soared out over the expanse, and my hair was free. My hair was the clouds, and then the clouds all gone. Birds patterned and repatterned overhead, gulls, cormorants. Brine and boat paint turned to single fragrance in the lungs, and the movement of the waves and what remained of me were travelling on the air. I was a box kite, filled and steadily wavering, my voice coarse as a gull's, the gathering sky darker than the beach, its smear of sunset sharp. In the sea's deep pulse, a reconciliation with all those hearts I hadn't understood. Then a brace of strong arms hoisted me. You can let go now. This next poem interlaces instructions and making memory quilt with autobiography and experiences of illness. It's called How to Do Your Needlework. 1. Cut out fragments of old baby grows, feeding cloths, arrange the fabrics and colour match carefully. A midwife called my body a jigsaw, and the sutures she made unravelled. 2. Press your blocks onto paper, pin, and keep safe between sheets of parchment like old flowers. I piece together the scraps in my head, the imagined golden thread, the aftermath. 3. Arrange top sides together with steel thimble, a fine and extra long needle. Everything carried too much significance, publishers' addresses or the brands of soap. 4. Start at the borders, work towards the centre point. Had they brought him to me those nights I lay almost anaesthetised, I might still have breastfed. 5. Meandering stitches on the quilt top that stab stitch through the deep layers. I save and press the frayed ends, some of it hurting me. 6. Each row of sewing should be neat hyphens, as if to indicate missing text. Or I nuzzled on my dents on my left side, where they wouldn't let keep needles. 7. To birth the quilt, sew along 3 sides, turn right way out. When I had him, I lost the thread. My mind left half inside the womb. 8. Label the underside with baby's name. Yours, the year. James, son of Jenny, 2013. The hospital fabric looks prettier now, as if a clear-winged moth should stretch down her legs to bless. Thank you so much for listening this evening, everyone. I'm really looking forward to hearing Oka's set, and it's been wonderful. And I'm just going to finish with a tiny poem called The Book of Thank You. I cupped my hands, the petals fell into them lightly. I opened my lips, a tune emerged like a freed wren. It was warm in the park, and the magnolias were candelabra. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jenny, for that really stunning reading. Each poem just feels like you are sort of watching the little fragments of them come together in like a little snow globe almost, and you really want to just spend that time listening to the words and hearing you read and sort of seeing these really quite beautiful, powerful, often very moving images forming and coming together before your very eyes. It's such a beautiful collection. Congratulations on the snow globe, and really delighted to be launching it this evening. Our third and final reader for this evening is Khairani Barokka. Oka's latest Nine Arches poetry collection, her third poetry collection, is Amuk. I'm absolutely delighted to be launching it this evening. And again, it's one of those books that when you're reading through your submissions and you sort of see a new manuscript come in and you're reading it, there was something just utterly stunning about this collection. The power of it, the force of it, the radical commitment to using the page to really express very important messages, which are both powerful, raw, and moments also of both fury and prayer within this incredible book. And I'm really so thrilled to be its publisher here at Nine Arches. I think also it's really a book to be seen and to hold and to have a look at how the poems themselves work on the page. It really is just stunning, and I'm really excited to be hearing Oka read from it this evening as well. So to tell you a little bit more both about this collection and also about Khairani Barokka. Khairani Barokka's uncompromising third collection of poetry, Amuk, sheds light on the devastating and ongoing effects of a single word's mistranslation. It emphasizes what exists in opposition to such hostile histories and presents us with hope, resistance, and joy. These poems look towards the sacred and ancestral, towards survival and continuance, the vital living resistance of persisting languages and resilient peoples. Victoria Adukwe-Bully says of this book that Khairani Barokka's poetry both makes and unmakes, picking apart the fabric and function of language so that we may put it to braver and more necessary use. Amuk is the work of a visionary. To tell you a little bit as well about Khairani Barokka. Khairani Barokka is translator, editor, writer, and artist from Jakarta, with over 2 decades of professional translation experience. In 2023, Oka was shortlisted for the Asian Women of Achievement Awards. Oka's work has been presented widely internationally and centres disability justice as anti-colonial praxis and access as translation. Among her honours, she has been a UNFPA Indonesian Young Leader driving social change, a Delphina Foundation Associate Artist, an Art Forum Must-See, an Associate Artist, and at the UK's National Centre for Writing in Norwich. Oka's books include Indigenous Species from Tilted Axis, Rope, Stares and Whispers, Deaf and Disabled Poets Write Back as co-editor, and Ultimatum Orangutan, those last 3 all from Nine Arches. Ultimatum Orangutan was also shortlisted for the 2022 Barbellion Prize. And this book, I think as well, thinking about the connections to Jenny's wonderful collection also, this really powerful set of poems here, I think, make interesting connections both between prayer and tenderness, between commitment to this force of truth-telling, which I think also Jenny's book shares, to how the rawness of experience, the body and the mind, through history and society, and also vitally through language, how both connection and communication can be forces of power and also forces of challenge, which is so important. I'm absolutely delighted then to welcome Oka to come and read from Amuk and to launch this wonderful collection.
Thank you so much, Jane, and everyone watching, and Angela behind the scenes, and for all your help. And thank you so much to Liz and to Jenny. Jenny, congratulations on your book. I wholeheartedly agree with the brilliant Liz Berry that the poems in Jenny's book move towards healing and luminosity. And I want to thank Nine Arches for always having been Nine Arches poet for some time now, for always being a haven for us disabled poets and for poets who can share experiences of illness and femininity. And yeah, thank you. Also, Angela and Jane reminded me that I have a snow globe in one of my poems in Amuk, in the poem Theories for Sky, which ends in the line nesting in a newborn lung, which I was like, oh my gosh, our books are communicating. So I'm an Indonesian woman wearing a lime green kabaya, although it looks more yellow in this light. I think I'm wearing red lipstick, dangly earrings, got my hair tied back, and behind me is a white paper kind of with black text all over it, and it's basically the cover of Amuk, just flattened out. So I'm going to share my screen, but only for the excerpt of Amuk that is coming up. And then I'll go back to not sharing. Because I think it kind of needs to, there are words that are bolded, etc. So 1, Amuk. And then you see the word amuk in Jawi. So Jawi script is a Southeast Asian script. It looks exactly like Arabic, but it has a bunch more characters that are not Arabic. So this can be, so if you're looking at it, you're probably thinking it's Arabic and it's also Jawi. Or what must be felt, or text from a performance lecture. This originated as a performance lecture for Edinburgh Futures Institute, sidebar, to commemorate the official universe-wide recognition of amuk, amok, and amak as separate voices in a past, present, future, or the tail end of a 500-year-old scream and not one temporal tense. So amok and amak are English words that come from the Malay Indonesian word amuk. Bo, mungkin perlu kita jelasin dulu ya. To enter the Indonesian language is a science fictional enterprise. It is a universe of speculative words, gestures, perception. This work is a move to remind ourselves of these chronotypes. Oop. Okay. Yes. All right. Indonesian, not bahasa, which simply means language, but bahasa Indonesia has no tenses. Thus, all translations into English, where past or present or future must be pinned down as definite, are both potentially right and always wrong. A reductive tense cannot encapsulate the speculative nature of our language, the science fictional possibilities, destabilizations, and this is, of course, not to mention the other different linguistic cosmologies in the archipelago, over 700 other languages and ways in which neurons enhance possibilities beyond modernity's fixity persnickety predilection for pinning down. Linguistic cosmology, how stars move and imprint upon the body. Translations from Bahasa Indonesia as illustration or reminder. Kami makan, we eat, we ate, we will eat. Kami kelaparan, we starve, we starved, we will starve. Kami mati, we die, we died, we will die. The refusal of Indonesian and various indigenous languages to conform, to have conformed, is to temporal orthodoxy, is, was, will be, the greatest of wisdoms on the tips of our tongues and limbs, kept keeping, will keep, self-protecting, in the leaves. The following is the story of how continually ruling factions interact with worlds in which they are, certainly were, most likely will not be, fully aware of how time passes, past will pass in what contexts, unaware of or resistant to truths regarding what they have contributed, contribute, or headlong towards future contributing to these time frames, centuries that impact body minds, human, animal, otherwise, through mitochondrial recall and retention of affects ancestral that have been or will be brought to bear. Ancestrally, we think or thought of time within different geometries, a non-linearity, cycles, continuance, motion, passing, past will pass steadily past Gregorian decades through indigenous calendars. This is and will be the story of one such emotion, amuk, and the ways it has been framed, claimed by twisted offspring of variant malevolences. So that is an excerpt from amuk, which means rage or to rage. And the word was adopted into Dutch, Danish, Portuguese, and English quite quickly in the late 17th century. And that timing should tell you, because that was when Dutch slavery began in Indonesia roundabout and lasted for 2 centuries, is that this word charts the history of colonization. How you get from rage to running amok, directionless, unruly is the story of resistance. I want to say happy Ramadan to everyone who is celebrating, as my family and I are, and I want to thank my family so much as well for all they've given to me and to this book. And I want to note that it is weird, isn't it, to say that we're celebrating this year when so many people from Sudan to Congo to Palestine to Papua, and Indonesia is still a colonial occupier of Papua itself, are experiencing genocide. And this book was written in solidarity with all of those peoples. And I thank you for giving time to it. So now I'm going to read a few standalone poems from the second half of the collection. So the first part is called amuk and the second part is called dua or prayer. And these are some poems from the dua section. Prayer directed at X after serpent with feet. Keep me tender in cupped hands. Let dust turn back to felt, cuts beget blooming, arias from nail-bitten mouths. You can't take me anywhere, udah lama. Let us stay here buttering dreams in a genocidal neighborhood. Keep me tender in there, keep me sleepy warm. Freshly bathed as algos close in for coin, raucous rock of death could be any year. Don't ever tell them where I am, where you cup me quiet and teething again. Rub cajeput oil on my miniature back, and when they ask what you have there, say, you're praying. So I wrote that in the early months of the pandemic, and could be any year, fortunately, still somewhat applies. To cleanse in reeds. My mother, a child, walks to the spring and rubs her body with wet grasses. She is taught, she learns, a scrubbing of detritus realm from our barrier of selves. The bending of wills and heads has not yet led to pesticidal lathering. My grandfather has not yet installed the house's waterways, aqua as bended will, and not will to enter, to bathe in no more than. These waters from which direction erupts, the cause for no such words as north, south, east, west used in our village before, there's only upstream, downstream. This couplet all the world needs to know of divining place and ways within it. Where to wash in a known rush of sluice, what part of the earth to bring to skins, how to gentle a renewal, how to be smallness and cold to begin. This one is entitled Preceding a Prayer for the Dead Asian Men Who Inspired a Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm a huge horror fan, and At some point, I learned that A Nightmare on Elm Street was inspired by reports in the 1980s of dozens of Southeast Asian men in the US, refugee men in particular, who had fled from Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia, and especially those from Hmong communities, dying in their sleep, with many having reported nightmares. Medical professionals called this sudden unexplained nocturnal death syndrome, or SUNS. Americana churns a grist of slashes and fear of the faces it burns, spits out a recurring broadcast of Freddy on screens in formation grenade-fueled. Having claimed that if you slept, you'd die unwaking, you fled, rose to an observatory height, watching as Agent Orange held tight to blood molecules, as the bombs that made you run to a cold stretch of states continued to bloom death in home soils that noticed you depart, as mines and sweatshops back home were squeezed for gleaming suburbs that continue to laugh at the accents with which you prayed to avoid terror under Empire Moon. As suited men determined these present pixeled mausolea, where hollow memory conscribers can find traces of your bones to blades seeking ingenue flesh. Where are your hands in this celluloid, and how were they positioned? The overseers grasped at, sought to break your mind's eye in a cycle of VHS-led obliteration, vastly beyond any vengeance your sleep could imagine, flinging the cause of your desperate leaving to an unfurling exploit of further nightmares. This one is entitled Doa Tanah, or Dirt Prayer. Lower me rooted, soil-breasted, iridescent brown, calm with earthworms, meeting maker at ground level, lying straight agog in peat, toes wrapped in tender shoots, shoulders fertile with moonlight, horizon-wide hips and paddy field blessing, rhythmic hands tapping dry season, dry season, wet. Tomorrow's another warm bedding ground, a place-based faith in no lost state. Legs sledging off a gash of chemicals, hoping mine makers weep their blood for a change. The sunrise, a mouth of glowing clay, greets mineral selves we are as its own cubs. Cocking our joints with the love of other bodies, flesh as rainforest and rice, endless. This is a long poem entitled A Cartographic Hunger. And I'm just going to end with this one. A cartographic hunger. On the hours is a mapping of bodily reminders of how there are cupped hands of laughter and continuance. In this country, where gold filling spits on new bones, gnashes femurs caught in a border's wire, infects us with acid-accented matter detritic in waves of lithium and copper. How do we pay no attention to this country? Hone breath to build for another land in the same coordinates of space. How do we forget this landscape of traps filling reservoirs with disbelieved wounds, all hyperspeed harvested, cultured to feed a mythic lion's open mouth? We sit reminding each other how kids across continents were born fleeing, entering living with the shock of a new universe. As sails woven from gold's price cover our dead where they rest, spanned lives and internal marble glowing in the spleen. We are building other countries, astonishing names permeating the cracked shores we wake to. The countries we seek have been self-constructing, adhesive to each other, in quiet clearings when nightfall is breath at a time, tiny plenitudes, handfuls of open waters, plain resuscitations in sleep. The countries we weave in secret karst, candid punchlines they missed the first time, palms on backs of bodies, rubbing softly, humming a heat. oceanic measurement, in seams they thought ripped, intricate philosophies millennia ahead, and who has the time to translate for them? We who are ever untranslating to free the epically innate. Keeping house, reaching for names for genders hunted to whispers, clearing hearth for formations sensed first as pulse. Welcoming the practice of inhalation, an intake of possible ships against ships. See ancient traders praying a susurration of Bismillahs, see melanated medieval, profound anchoring in the seeds transported from archipelago to archipelagic ends. Plague years make breathing heavy, quick, nightmare horse plowing clouds of insomnia. Looking up to the undersides of billionaire bunkers, thousands of words for rainforest picture framed as carbon credit scams. Look up further to indigenous firmament. Feel air swimming down our gullets, touch aloe on the skin that stings, from pylons they've tried to graft in seamless, touch only immediacy of exhale to wake these countries. Teaching ourselves their escape, showing in each other the joyfully absconding, breathing in entreaty for space, hailing slow timekeepers who understand everything, believe each story, cut their profiles from air, a chiseled grace. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Oka. What an absolutely stunning reading. I feel that we've travelled from linguistic corruption through linguistic cosmology with these precise poems, unswerving and layered. This is poetry as a vital act of solidarity in terrible times. It is also the way that Oka's poetry explores how language can urge us to have this how to gentle a renewal, I think was one of the most extraordinary lines from that reading that just really stuck with me. This book is a groundbreaking and precious gift. It's been a really incredible evening tonight, and I think one thing that has connected all three readings has been that physicality of poetry, its absolute ability through language to reach for something, to unravel the truth at the heart of things, to allow us to get close to saying what really needs to be said, to be explored. And each poet has just brought such tenderness and focus to their readings. It's been such a pleasure. A huge thank you to our audience this evening as well. It's been such a delight to listen to all of, read, sorry, I should say, all of your comments. And I'm just going to bring all of our readers back on the screen. So hopefully our audience can see Liz, Oka and Jenny alongside myself now. Thank you so much. Your comments as the poems have been read have just been such a joy to read, and we will share these afterwards as well and read and share them amongst ourselves. So thank you. It's been just lovely to have you all here and to sort of gather again in this digital space and to share poems and to celebrate the arrival of these two wonderful books by Jenny Pagdin, The Snow Globe, and by Khairani Barokka, Amuk. It's just been wonderful. A big thank you to Liz Berry for being our very special guest this evening. Thank you, Liz. And a huge thank you again to Oka and Jenny Pagdin for their wonderful readings. To my colleague Angela, who's also been looking after you all tonight. And we'll just have a final round of applause for our wonderful readers this evening. Khairani Barokka, Jenny Pagdin, Liz Berry. Thank you so much. We're going to now say goodnight to you all and wave goodbye. But we're really grateful for our wonderful audience for joining us this evening. So without further ado, this is Thank You from Jane Kemain at Nine Arches, and we will see you all very soon. Thank you, everybody. Good night.